So sorry about the, excuse me, loss of my voice. The not posting the last couple of days. I had a internet issue and then a system crash. So it took a little bit of time to get it all back together. So today let's talk about the bandhas. And bandhas, excuse me, are the locks or the muscular contractions that we apply to the body. And this is so that we can direct the prana or the apana. And prana is the life-giving energy. Apana is the outward flow of that energy. I always think of prana as breath, but it could be considered Kundalini energy as well. Now there are main, um, three main bandhas. So you have the Mula Bhanda, which is the root lock, the Uddiyana Banda, the diaphragm lock, and then the Jalandhara Banda, which is the neck lock. So let's start with the root lock or the Mula Band. So Mula actually means root. And if you think about it, when you pull up, that's where you're pulling from, right? The root chakra, the root of your body, the base of your body, the root of your spine. And excuse me, so it consists of the three actions. I did talk about this a little bit in one of the videos, but I wanted to make sure I got a video specifically for the bandhas. So when we do the Mula Bandh, you're going to contract the anal sphincter and you're going to contract the sex organs and you're going to pull in and up. So it's going to feel like you're trying to hold the bowel movement and hold your urine. So it's that pulling in and up. You're pulling the organs up. And then you pull the navel point toward the spine. So the first one is the contraction of the anal sphincter. The second one is pulling on the sex organs. And then the third one is, or the third point, excuse me, is the pulling of the navel point toward the spine by contracting the abdominal muscles. I always think of it less in steps and it's more a movement. So I start with my sphincter and then I move to the sex organs and then I'm kind of pulling up. So I go from the back and then work up. So I'm pulling the abdominal. So start with the anal sphincter, pulling the sex organs, pulling up the abdominal muscles. And this can be done with the breath held in or out. There are actually a couple meditations where we will hold in, and then one where we will pull out or we will hold out, or kriyas, excuse me, the kriya sets. And it's an interesting distinction between when you have your breath held in and you do a mula bandh versus when it's held out. It's kind of a cool experience. And then, so just to reiterate, physically, these are like Kegel exercises, right? You're contracting those muscles. This is very good for preventing urinary incontinence. It strengthens the vaginal walls after childbirth because it's lifting the pelvic floor from deep inside, right? You're flexing, you're contracting those muscles and pulling up. So it's very similar to the Kegel exercises. So one of the key functions of the Mulaband is that this lock is a blending of prana and apana at the navel center, which is creating an inner heat or tapa. And this opens the entrance to the sushumna, which, excuse me, the sushumna is the central channel for energy flow up the spine. So it starts at the base of the spine and works its way up to the crown of your head. And then the two entrance points for the Sushumna, I forgot to put this in the description in my notes, but you have your left nostril and your right nostril. They both link directly to the Sushumna. So when you do alternate breathing, that also impacts. It can have clarifying, soothing, or energizing, depending on which nostril you're breathing out of, effects on the Sushumna. And then this also pierces the Brahma Granthi. So the Brahma Granthi is one of three primary psychic knots. And it's exactly what it sounds like. So it's a knot or a block that prevents the free flow of prana, right, or Kundalini energy. They're knots that prevent the free flow of that energy. And then I made additional notes. So the Brahma Granthi, it's actually governing the primal instinctual and then the survival patterns, which, since this is the Mula Band and it is the root chakra, which also has to do with survival and your primal basic needs, it makes sense that this would be a knot where that's going to be impacted or energy flow is going to be impeded. And so it obviously has to do with the root and the sacral chakra, which again makes sense because we're pulling on the abdominal muscles, which also are the sacral chakras. And then this tendency is for tamas, which is one of three gunas. Gunas are just, they mean qualities, and that's more an Ayurvedic topic, which I intend to cover in more depth in a later time. I'm just not sure when I can fit it in right now. And then with tamas, that has to do with ignorance, it has to do with apathy, anxiety, lethargy, chaos are the deficiencies of tamas. So obviously the more positive aspects, or more balanced, I should say, not necessarily positive, but the more balanced aspects of that would be that you're knowledgeable or you're awake, if you prefer that to ignorance. You're aware, that can also be one of them. It's you're in more of a balanced state, it's less chaotic, you have more energy. And then of course you feel balanced. You don't have anxiety, you don't have apathy, you feel open, free flowing, there's connection, right? You don't feel overwhelmed with that. Now, the Mula Band also increases the stability of the pelvis, which is the seat of the spine, because we're contracting the supportive muscles of the pelvis, right? So and the sphincter muscle very much is a part of our pelvis. And when we work to strengthen that muscle, it not only strengthens the pelvis, it gives the lower back more support as well. So it's multi-layer. The Mula Band is a really good bandha to practice. Good place to start. And then, of course, this stimulates the proper flow of spinal fluid with the contractions, with building up those muscles. And then through the practice, Mula Bandha becomes less of a muscle contraction, and it's more of that subtle, refined movement that yoga eventually becomes the more you practice it, right? You flow in from warrior one up to standing or into bow pose, or you it becomes more of a refined movement where you're able to better flow. And then it's perfect to practice by itself with an asana, a meditation, a kriya, pranayama. Mula Bandha is really something I still practice, even just like sitting and talking. I do it it reminds me to reflect on my posture. Okay, am I slouching again? Am I leaning forward? Is my pelvis out of? Because I have a tendency to like lean forward from my pelvis instead of from my upper body with my abdomen solidly grounded, right? So it just reminds me to check it in with my posture. Now let's move on to the Uddiyana. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I still struggle with the correct pronunciation of the diaphragm lock, the Uddiyana Banda. Now, Uddiyana means to fly up or to push the energy in the lower abdomen upward. So this, excuse me, this lock actually joins apana, prana, and samana. Now, samana means pacification or um, balanced air. And it'll be a little more clear as I go why it's labeled that. So the samana, or the balanced air in the sushumna, to pierce the Vishnu Granthi. And then remember, the Granthis are the um, they're not in the psychic subtle body, right? So Vishnu Granthi governs love, passion, and emotional patterns. Now, if you think about where we're flexing, since this is the diaphragm lock, that makes perfect sense. That's the halfway point in the chakras, right? We're moving that energy, the lower energies from the lower chakras up into the heart. We're moving that upward. So it makes sense that the Vishnu Granthi would be a knot having to do with love and compassion because it's we're working on the heart, right? That area in between moving up into the heart. And of course, emotional patterns also would be included in that. So this has to do with the sacral and the heart again, because we're moving that energy from lower chakras up into the heart. It makes sense that it's sacral to heart. And then the tendency for this is rajas. Again, it's just a guna or a quality. The qualities being individuality. And again, this is out of balance. Okay, so this is when you're not balanced within the chakras, within your subtle body, within if there's imbalance anywhere, basically. So, individuality, egoism, passion, and then self centeredness. And then, of course, this is meaning passion as in unfettered, uncontrolled. You're easily overtaken by passion, but it's not really grounded in inner stability, right? There's not an inner anchor to that passion coming from the heart. It's kind of just passion for passion's sake. That would be an imbalance with passion. So it's when we allow the prana, coming back to the diaphragm lock, I don't want to keep mispronouncing Uddiyana. Okay, it's getting a little easier. So allowing the prana to flow from the first to the fourth chakra, this bandha strengthens the fire element of the solar plexus and then opens the heart, which is the first step toward compassion and universal love. And if you think about the pumping action of the navel, that's always going to generate a fire, right? Because you're you're not only building your core, but you're building the center of strength, right? We always want to move from our abdomen, from our core, right? So for this one, the diaphragm, since it is a physical muscular barrier dividing the upper thorax and lower abdomen, this we only apply this lock with the breath fully exhaled. You do not want to do this on an inhale. I've done that accidentally and it hurt. I don't recommend it. So to engage this one, lift the abdominal area, especially the area above the navel point. So you're pulling the diaphragm. This is gonna be a little harder for me to do without um, exhaling, but you pull up of that area above the navel, right? And then back towards the spine. And then you want to ensure that you keep your chin lifted. So with all of the bandhas, you want to make sure that your chin is aligned. So it's not drooped down, it's not way up. You've got it parallel to the floor because you want your spine to be aligned regardless of which bandha you're doing. If it's neck lock, it's diaphragm, it's root. You want your spine to be in alignment. And your chin is a very good barometer of whether or not you're slouching. And it's a good reminder to check in with your posture to make sure that you are aligned. Um, so this is not an abdominal contraction. Okay, so like Mula Bhanda, that's a contraction, right? We're pulling those muscles in and up and towards the spine. It's a contraction of the muscle. The Uddiyana Banda, the diaphragm lock, we're pulling upwards from the spot above the navel. We're pulling up, and because of the vacuum that's created by the movement of the diaphragm into the chest cavity, this isn't a contraction, it's a pull upward. And when the diaphragm is pulled back and up, it actually rubs against the heart, which helps with circulation because the diaphragm and the heart are coming into a pretty intimate contact if you think about it. And the heart muscles are gently massaged, which is how circulation improved or increased, excuse me. So with the Uddiyana Banda, I'm going to master this, the diaphragm lock. You want to hold it calmly anywhere from 10 to 60 seconds and then gently release by relaxing the abdomen and inhaling slowly at the same time. Don't rush it. Just allow it to just allow the relaxation as you slowly allow the abdomen to relax and inhale slowly. So some of the benefits for the Uddiyana Bandha is it massages the intestines and the heart muscle because when you pull up, and the Mula Bandha also will, there's a certain amount of massaging that you do, especially if you're doing it multiple times throughout a kriya or even with some of the navel pumping action with certain meditations. That is a light mulaband when you do that, or becomes a light mulaband, I should say, because with practice with the mulaband, it's kind of a habit to pull those muscles kind of instinctively. And then the Uddiyana, excuse me, Uddiyana Bandha, it also stimulates metabolic processes and cleansing in the abdominal area. Wow, I'm trying to combine like three different words on that one because we're squeezing the organs, right? So it's a cleansing and metabolic because we're massaging those organs. Just like when you get a body massage and those muscles can finally release all of those toxins, right? And then this is a really good one to practice to slow degenerative aging processes and can give a very youthful look to the entire body. And then, of course, this one is very much about surrendering your ego to the heart. All right, now Jalandhara Bandha is the neck lock. Okay, so the neck lock, this one I was taught a couple different ways actually. So let's start with how you practice this one. So you're going to want to sit straight. And again, paying a special attention to the chin. The chin is parallel to the ground. It's not lowered. You're not looking up. It's not a, we're not moving the neck about, right? It's not a neck exercise. It's a neck lock. So you want to pull the chin back. A little bit of pressure, nothing crazy. You should still be able to breathe. You should be able to swallow. It shouldn't be really intense. And then you're gonna have the spine, of course, is straight. And you want to lift the chest and the sternum upward, bringing the chin back. Again, it should just be a straightening of the spine, and then the chin comes back a little bit. Make sure your pelvis is in alignment. If you do what I do with rounding your pelvis forward, roll your pelvis back so it's in alignment the with the spine. This is neck lock in most meditations and most kriyas, depending on what you're doing within that kriya. The second way I was taught, this is more a meditation or a kriya of itself. You're going to put your hands on your knees, straighten your arms. Again, it's the same pose, okay? So your chin is still back, your spine is still aligned, pelvis is not rounded, it's in alignment. You're just going to lean forward with the chin still in the same position, and you should feel a straightening at the back of the neck. If not, try slowly bringing your chin back a little bit to see if you feel that straightening. And you're just leaning forward from the hips, just like a normal stretch. And then just to reiterate, the head stays level. Do not tilt it forward. And this can be applied both on the inhalation or the exhalation. So you can pull this, you can apply the neck lock with your breath held in or out. This one's okay for either. And then by straightening the cervical vertebrae, we are allowing free flow of prana to the glandular centers of the brain. This also does help the throat chakra. It activates the throat chakra and is very purifying on thoughts and actions because we're allowing that energy, that Kundalini energy to flow freely, right? It's finally able to get through and to process that out. The neck lock also activates the thyroid and parathyroid glands, which causes them to secrete more optimally. And then this obviously activates higher functions of the pituitary or has the potential to. Um, then again, and I just want to reiterate this, if you're not applying neck lock in certain meditations, and I do try to make sure I say pull a neck lock, um, you can feel an uncomfortable pressure in the eyes, the ears, the heart, if you don't, because again, the all of these bandhas actually really do help with posture to ensure that you're sitting correctly, your spine is aligned, your pelvis is aligned, and that the energy is able to flow. But if you are feeling pressure in the eyes, the ears, the heart, that's a good indication that you're out of alignment. Either you're leaning forward, your pelvis is rounded, your spine is rounded. So what I always do is I'll sit back and then just kind of start from the pelvis because that's generally what I'm rounding first, and then just work my way up to see where the tension feels like it's building, other than my eyes, ears, or heart, of course. And then with the head drop towards the chest, that's where our head mind is, or excuse me, our heart mind is born because the mind is inspired to subside to the heart. So that's why a lot of yoga you bow, your head is bowing because it's bowing to the wisdom of the heart. And then just a couple of other benefits I wanted to touch on. When we close the airways, now obviously this isn't like a total blocking of the airway, but when we're applying that pressure to the airways, it's increasing blood flow and circulation to the arteries of the neck. And then it's also balancing the thyroid gland, improving the thyroid gland function, and it's also stimulating for the metabolism. This one, the Jalandhara Banda, also stimulates the vagus nerve, which is a parasympathetic nerve. So it's going to decrease both the blood pressure and the heart rate. And I feel like, at least for me, that has a lot to do with the energy flow finally flowing freely throughout my entire body. So, not saying medical science backs that up. That's just my experience when I use these bandhas. And then this one also does put some pressure on the sinuses, which helps to regulate the circulatory and the respiratory systems, which our sinuses are a huge part of. Then, of course, just the basic, we're stretching our neck where a lot of us put our tension. I know I do, especially in certain yoga poses. I put all of that right in my neck, and it's just a process of working through that so that I'm not automatically putting tension in my neck. So, again, sorry for the delay in getting a video posted, but system crashes and internet issues can't be helped. So I hope you found this helpful. I hope you had a great day, and I will see you soon.